I finally did it. I finally forgot to post on Twitter that we're starting, but I'm doing it right now, everybody. So your friends are coming. Just give it a second. Going live now. I apologize. I want to rerun our pre-show conversation, Michael.
Yeah.
So I said I came on. I was 5 or 6 minutes, maybe 6 minutes late, and I said I apologize. I'm still running on CP time.
Yeah.
And then you said,
I said that a famous public speaker who had some success with his public speaking by the name of Adolf Hitler had the same habit of he would start his speeches late, so the crowd would have a ton of anticipation. And anybody who knows how to work a crowd, especially if you have a large one ready for you, you want them kind of angry, like at the edge of their seats, waiting for you.
Yeah, and then he pointed out that in the negotiations with Poland, prior to the invasion of Poland, that Hitler used deliberate tardiness in his responses as part of his negotiation strategy. And so I said, oh my gosh, once again, I learned a lot from Michael Weimer. Adolf Hitler was working on CP time too, to which you said,
oh yeah, well, black people love Hitler and Hitler loves black people too.
Speaking of me, yes. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I said that's often true. Actually, there are quite a few of our African American citizens who have expressed an admiration for Hitler.
And
to which you said,
yeah, well, there's the connection there is mutual, and the whole story about Jesse Owens, right, at the Olympics, that's total BS. Like, Hitler wasn't angry that Jesse Owens won. Hitler was kinder to Jesse Owens than FDR was. Hitler actually, I believe, shook Jesse Owens' hand, and FDR did not. Little known fact. Everybody just makes up their own history about this stuff because they think that all racists are like a villain in a Spike Lee movie, but there's some nuance out there.
Yeah, they have to be perfectly evil.
Yeah.
There is no nuance allowed. I have learned this time and time again in not defending, but in, renegade history and in many other cases. What would you call it? Advancing the point of view of the marginalized, the truly marginalized miscreants in society. Yeah, it's always been very clear, which leads right up to the present, which were Palestinians and certainly Hamas and whatever considered to be purely evil by that side. And so any attempt to understand Adolf Hitler, having spent about 2 years of my life recently studying that guy, he's incredibly complex and interesting.
Yeah. The story about him being late and annexing Poland, my science teacher in middle school told me this once, and that's my only source on this. But apparently, the meeting with the prime minister of Poland, everybody smoked back then, and Hitler had a sensitive lung from World War I and from being mustard gassed. So he would demand that in every meeting he ever have, that nobody ever smoke around him. So if you can imagine, this is the 30s or whatever, and the prime minister's chomping for a cigarette, and Hitler shows up hours late, and he's just jonesing and, waiting to just smoke. And Hitler comes in, storms, gets angry, makes a ton of demands. And apparently the prime minister just caved because he wanted to get out of the room.
Hey, if I got mustard gassed, I'd want to kill some people too.
Yeah.
I'd want to get out there. I'd be rampaging. Am I joking? No. That was the consequence of World War I, everybody. It's called World War II. The way that World War I went down and was, of course, ended by the Allies, their use of mustard gas. Yes, the Germans used it too. But it was, a more barbarous and imperialist side defeating a smaller, also barbarous and also somewhat imperialist side. And the victims in it got royally destroyed and screwed in multiple ways, which we all know gave rise to Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, and the rest is history, so to speak. But yeah, so what we're trying to do here to start off the show is get people to understand Adolf Hitler as a person. Open your hearts is what we're saying. No, actually, I mean that. You're just an idiot if you don't. Was he anti-Semitic? Oh gosh, militantly anti-Semitic from the time he was a teenager, as far as I know. Never relented from that one bit. Just not quite as violently anti-Semitic as people think until the very end, when he was forced, in many ways, into what became known as the Holocaust. But let's stop talking before we get banned.
Yeah, well, here we are wanting to stick to a tight schedule now.
I know.
We organized our
like,
topics.
Michael,
Michael, do the Hitler riff. Do the Hitler riff for 10 minutes. I'm going to show up late.
No, it's even better than that. About 2 hours ago, I texted Michael. I said, "Listen, we need to stick to this schedule. I want like 15 minutes per segment.
Yeah.
Can we do this?" And he's like, "Sure, dude." And I'm like, "Okay, great, thank you." And then I start this by like, "Yo, can you tell me about your feelings about Hitler?"
Yeah.
And can you riff continually? And now it's 10 minutes into it. We're still talking about Hitler and telling people to open their hearts for Hitler. And this is not going well. Can we move to the news?
Yeah.
Fast.
Yeah. Okay.
I renounce everything we just said.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about black people news? Let's.
Well,
no, we're starting with Mexican people. No, Salvadoran.
We're getting darker as the show progresses,
so to speak.
Yeah.
This is terrible. Okay.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Going with our
God. I imagine, I grew up around, until I was like in my 40s, basically exclusively liberals and leftists. Mm-hmm. My entire world was liberals and leftists. Everybody I knew voted for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and did so enthusiastically in many cases. Everybody. I'm sure, I've been ostracized from that entire world since then, but I know, and I'm sure there are many of you watching this show, and you must be thinking, what happened to Thad? But continue.
What happened? He was such a nice boy.
It's this kid right here. It's fucking Weimer guy. Notice the German name. It's not me. He came to me one day. He was like, "Yo, listen, I got the really good shit here. Check it out."
Yeah.
You thought the shit you had last week was good? Nah, this shit right here. This shit right here. No. And I said, "No, I don't want. I'm scared." And he said, "No, what do you?" And I said, "No, hey, I'll try it. Fine."
Yeah. Says the man with the book coming out this year. That's
my last memory. That's my last memory of having any agency. It was this fucking Indiana kid.
Somebody who's been working for 12 years on a book about World War II revisionism.
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah.
I've been told by how many people on major podcasts and shows over the last week have said historical revisionism should not be done. Mm-hmm. That's what they say. It's just the ignorance.
So since we're there, let's start with Douglas Murray and the Dave Smith debate, because
oh no, wait, you're fucking up the schedule.
Order. I know. Let's do reverse order. We'll get around to it. I know, but I don't have the momentum to switch to deportations right now.
You're running this show like Trump's running his administration. Just
I know. You do the
whatever
weave.
the fuck. You just do it.
I do the weave.
Let's go.
But I think this is an important moment for alternative media. There's been rumblings for like the last 6 months, maybe even more, where like half of the alternative dissident right space is fitting into one camp just by being critical of Israel and not being afraid to re-examine the post-war consensus and re-examine the foundations of everything. And then there's another camp of people who entered the alternative media space adjacent to what used to be called the intellectual dark web, that if you look at them, they kind of came out of the new atheist realm. There also used to be liberals. Some of them used to be neocons, and they were just anti-woke as primarily what got them into the alternative media space. And now they are accusing those who are against the war in Israel, people who are against mythologizing about the foundations of the modern world, which is World War II, as the woke right.
Mm-hmm.
And so this came to a head finally in the real world in Joe Rogan's studio when both Dave Smith and Douglas Murray happened to be in Austin. And so he invited them both on for a 3-hour plus conversation. And it was very illuminating about the motives of both. Douglas Murray immediately made ad hominem arguments, basically made appeals to authority, touted some sort of expert thing, and the whole time was accusing Dave of having false motives, and Dave was just trying to stay on topic and actually argue the facts on the ground of these wars and of World War II and everything. Douglas Murray spent half the episode arguing with Daryl Cooper, who wasn't in the room. And also, on Douglas Murray's point about expertise in comedians, he does have a point there in that I thought Douglas Murray, this isn't an insult, I thought he was an excellent comedian on the podcast, and Dave Smith was an excellent geopolitical analyst. Douglas Murray made a ton of great jokes throughout the podcast. He called Dave Smith bisexual for being libertarian. And Dave Smith didn't have a comeback for that at all. He just wanted to talk politics. Like, if somebody like Douglas Murray calls you bisexual as a comedian, there's a number of ways to respond to that. And Dave Smith just wanted to be a pure geopolitical analyst. So hats off to Douglas Murray for that observation. But this is the upside down world we're in.
You know, like I really try hard, and I'm usually very good at this, refraining from ad hominems at all. I'm really quite disciplined at that, actually, until it comes to Douglas Murray. I can't with this guy. I mean, if he does not remind you of Voldemort or any of the villains in the Die Hard movies, we can't be friends. I don't see how else you can look at that guy and conclude otherwise. Delivering vacuous, basically non-arguments for a year and a half now in the most fancied up, poshest Oxbridge accent you could imagine. And by the way, he's from a middle-class family, so a lot of that is put on. The extra embellishments, middle-class Brits don't usually talk like that. He is straight aristocracy, cosplaying, actually. In defense of using Oxbridge, the highest, poshest, which, you know, I know American women, you love it, blah, blah, blah. And American men think that makes you, Glenn Greenwald said it, what it adds 20% to your, 20 points to your IQ in the American mind.
Yeah.
When they hear a British accent.
Have you seen Love Actually? Have you seen Love Actually, that movie?
25 times, you know, because I've had girlfriends. Yeah.
Yeah. But the scene where the British guy's not getting laid in the UK, so he goes to America and then just
he's
rolling off.
He's like this little geeky, scrawny weirdo dude. And he's like fucking, you know, Playboy playmates.
Yeah. That's a documentary that happens at every college university to the one foreign exchange student from Britain. That's fact. That is the mild portrayal of reality. They underplayed it. No
matter what their teeth look like. It's disgusting. Anyway, let's get back to the news. So Douglas Murray. But as you said that, no, dead first observation that I haven't heard anybody else say this. I've heard multiple commentaries on this debate, which is a thing in itself. But yeah, I haven't heard anybody say, you're right, Dave. I don't think Dave was funny at all. Wasn't trying to be. Wasn't interested in being funny.
Yeah.
He was interested in being, and has been for many years now. I mean, I've known Dave. He's been on my shows multiple times. We did a great live show in Brooklyn with him. It's been, he's been doing this for like 10 years now, being as rigorous, and that's the word I was thinking about with him. Rigorous an analyst as he could, as one could be, given no prior training or academic training in this thing. And by the way, people who are trained in political science departments and international relations departments tend to be training to work for the government. Okay. So that does not make you especially smart about politics. It makes you especially good at getting a job in the State Department. That's what those departments are for, primarily. I mean, the credentialism piece of it is, I mean, Murray, there is something in there that I agree with, which is that, and I've felt this, I have felt a little bit Douglas Murray-ish at times since I've been messing around in the dissident podcast world. Now it's been 8 years for me. You know, it's like sometimes I think, gosh, you know, I wish you guys had read stuff before you became political. I mean, a lot of people in our world here in the kind of dissident podcast, and this is for the left and the right, by the way. And Rogan is a classic example, but he's kind of not just an example. He's really he's almost the template for, I'm highly unusual in having a PhD and having been a professor and operating in this world. There's very few people doing this who have that background. Not saying I'm better, but I did spend a considerable portion of my life simply reading books about history and philosophy and then teaching them and writing about them. And, it's not that I was at an Ivy League university. It's not that I was trained by experts, is that I spent a lot of time. I was able to do that because I was given fellowships to go to Columbia for a decade, basically, and teach and write and study and just study and think. And this is what I did professionally. And I was being trained to do this professionally and then I did it professionally for another 25 years after that. So sometimes I do miss, and that rigor is the word that I often think of. There's usually a lack of rigor, even among the smartest podcasters who I generally agree with, because very, very few of them have that academic training. Now, the academic training, as I said, generally is designed to steer you in particular directions ideologically and vocationally. They want you to have sort of some kind of left liberal ideology. Of course, that's required, and I found that out. And generally speaking, if you're on the left, they want you to be in a particular NGO or nonprofit as a vocation. Or, if you're on the right or liberal middle, there is no right in the universities. As I said, State Department, working for the government in some capacity. So, so the virtue of being an autodidact in the and it's been enabled by the internet, of course. I mean, these people could not have done what they're doing now. All these podcasters from Rogan on down, basically the entire Rogan universe, not just him, but all the podcasters who he has sort of promoted and given careers to, and I'm one of them. The great virtue for most of them who are not like me is that they're not professors. They were not trained. Therefore, their minds are much more free. I, for whatever reason, managed to sort of break out of the ideological hold when I was still a professor, but most don't. I mean, most are left liberal from birth to death, and it's just enforced when they're professors. But, Joe Rogan, I think, did like a year in community college or something. And that's true for most of them. At most, they finished college. And that would be unusual, I think. The virtue is their minds are free because they were not trained. The vice of that is that they were not trained. And so they're not, first of all, they don't know the literature. They don't know what's already been said, right, about the topics they're discussing. That's the most frustrating thing for me. Like, for instance, and I'll mention someone in particular, and he was on my show and I called him out for this. So this is not like private information. This is very public. Michael Malice, when he wrote that recent book about the history of the Soviet Union. And Michael has said, like, he is no historian. He said, if a historian of the Cold War, debated me, he would wipe the floor with me. So great credit for that. He understands this, but then the book is written like a person who doesn't know the historiography of the Soviet Union. It's about the Soviet Union, not the Cold War. It's about life in the Soviet Union. And I pointed out, that several of his sources were basically neocons, like Anne Applebaum, but he didn't know that. He didn't know that she was a neocon with a particular political agenda in writing that book, which was literally to promote the war with Russia by the United States in the last 20 years. The indirect war with Russia, the proxy war with Russia, And so he didn't know that because he didn't know the literature and he didn't know the background. He didn't know the politics. He didn't know. And so, again, it's wonderful that, and this is what makes them great. And this is why that podcast sphere has grown so much, is that they are free to think new. And this is why Donald Trump won. This is why the Democratic Party has 25% approval rating today. This is why the whole American political landscape has been broken apart in recent years, because all these guys, almost all guys, besides me, pretty much, I can't even think of another. There's a handful of PhDs in this world, but most of them didn't even go to college. Most of them came to this world with free minds and curious minds, really curious minds and free minds. And that's what made their message new and creative and brilliant. And not just brilliant, but now it's historically important. Joe Rogan is the second most consequential political figure of our time. The former host of Fear Factor, who didn't go to college and wears t-shirts on his shows. And I'm not disrespecting, I'm saying that's why, exactly why he became so great. But anyway, the lack of rigor, though, you know, like, and this goes for the liberals among the dissident world. Sam Harris, he has said this. He didn't know anything about politics, didn't study anything, had never read anything about politics or history until 9/11, when he was already in his 40s, I think, or 30s at least. And you can tell there's a neophyte aspect. Jordan Peterson was not interested in politics until 10 years ago.
Well, that's
and now he's sort of learning things anew. So when a war pops up, like in Israel or Ukraine, who does he have on his show to explain it to everybody? He has on one of the Kagans, because he doesn't even know. He doesn't know the history of neoconservatives. He doesn't know the history of American foreign policy. He doesn't know the history of any of this shit. So there's an ahistoricism that comes with this. There's a lack of, again, intellectual rigor in all these issues that we all talk about all the time. A lack of historical knowledge is death. If you don't know the historical context of what we're talking about at all, or very little, it's very hard to make a compelling argument, I think, that is rigorous and can hold up to scrutiny. You have to know some historical background, and very, very few do. Daryl Cooper is a great example. So that's what he does. He does history in his podcast, but he's not trained. He started doing, I know Daryl, and I've known Daryl for 15 years now. And when I met him, he was working for the Navy, I think, and then also a software developer or something like that. And Daryl's amazing and brilliant, and his stuff is obviously brilliant, and he's done the research like nobody's business, but he's not trained. And he does, and that the problem there is he doesn't know what has come before. It's called a historiography. How historians have written about this. What he doesn't know the debates. He came to it new, and I think that's the problem in his work. Often, it's not situated within or engaging with the prevailing narratives and the prevailing arguments about history. But anyway, I still think his work is amazing, and his stuff on World War II, again, it's not exactly my take, but I think, he's breaking apart the World War II consensus, historiographical consensus, which everybody is required to internalize as Americans and Westerners. He's putting his foot through that for the first time, and he's right. And he's said this a few times. Once we break that apart, once we start to do the real research and showing what else went on in World War II, besides what we are told, then all of our contemporary Western politics will fall apart, because that is the entire basis upon which it rests. Once the prevailing, dominant, highly enforced narrative of World War II is deconstructed and truly analyzed for the first time, and then the results of that analysis are given to the public, of course, it all falls apart. And this goes for the Democratic Party. This goes for the Republican Party. This goes for what we call American liberalism and American conservatism, because all those things were built entirely upon the basis of our narrative, not what happened, but the narrative of World War II. So anyway, the fact that Daryl wasn't trained in my profession is what allowed him to be like, wait, what is this whole story we're telling about Germany in the 1930s and 40s? Like, this sounds a little bit mythological, doesn't it? And so he went looking, and he sure enough found almost immediately, as you will do if you are really curious about World War II, you will immediately find out that it's almost all mythology, almost all of it. All right, the schedule for this show is completely screwed up, and that's your fault.
Yeah, it's sad. Well, on the World War II tip, it's sad when wartime propaganda and post-war propaganda just stays as the consensus, and then it's built on with even crazier propaganda. It's funny. Our cultural attitude now is more hysterical than it was, let's say, in 1947. Like, our ideas about the Nazis are more crazy, more dehumanizing, more pure evil than it was
and more
just immediately after,
and more
dogmatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, it's a religion. It's absolutely a religion. I mean, if you simply say that Hitler did not have any intention for a global empire at all, like any empire outside of his actual near sphere, oh Jesus, you're a Nazi apologist. And then I'll follow up by saying, did you know that the Wehrmacht had no landing craft in 1939 and no transport ships for troops? So how was he going to conquer the United States with, not to mention no real Marine Corps? I mean, okay, guys. Anyway,
well, the United States and Great Britain had to stop somebody else from taking over the world. You see.
Oh yeah,
United States, Great Britain, totally contained. Do not take over the world. Do not.
The next time some Brit says that Hitler was going to conquer Great Britain, laugh in his face and show him what the Wehrmacht was made of. Yes, they could bomb from the air, of course, as Britain was doing before that against German civilian cities. Yes, the RAF began the bombing campaign in World War II on German cities and killed civilians before Nazi Germany did a thing to the British people. But no, they had zero ability. As I said, they had no way of landing troops, putting them across the English Channel and landing them on the shores of Impossible. They had no ships to do it with. Anyway,
they talked about
no desire to do it, just like Putin has no desire to invade Britain now. Same thing.
They talked about this during the podcast, in that this argument about credentialism and trusting the experts and, oh, you have to have gone someplace to do something or whatever, is that like this is debunked in the post-COVID era, right? And I think if people want us to trust experts again, you need to have Anthony Fauci in jail. You need to have a giant, truth and reconciliation committee from the experts when it comes to health. And, if you followed the medical experts, the credentialed PhD virologists, you'd probably be sick and dead and mentally scarred and vaccinated and everything. And if you followed the crazy conspiracy theorist, you probably would have just, taken some vitamin C, gone outside, had a pretty healthy life.
What is so wonderful about this? I said this on Twitter. I said this to some Palestinian friends of mine. Is that I'm pretty sure, and certainly looks like this, Douglas Murray, with that performance, did more to free Palestine than anyone in history.
Yeah,
because recent polls just showed that a majority, 53% of Americans, have an unfavorable view of Israel, and 2/3 basically of Democrats, or even three quarters of young Democrats, have an unfavorable view of Israel, and young Republicans, a substantial, I think about a quarter or maybe more of young Republicans have an unfavorable view of Israel. And then you see one after another right-winger, Trump supporter, MAGA head say critical things about Israel and start to ask, why we're America first? Make America great again? Why are we funding this thing? And they don't care so much about the dead brown children. And I'm actually fine with that, so long as they end up at the right place, which is to take a truly America first position, which is we don't fund other countries to do stuff, especially go to war. And if you're a Christian like Candace Owens and you see a whole bunch of dead children with their limbs blown off all over the place, you tend to feel bad about it and not want to fund that in particular. So Douglas Murray, with his profound elitism, and again, I don't care that someone's elitist. I'm glad in this case that he's elitist, because he fucked up so royally from that. He didn't know. This is the problem. He walked onto Joe Rogan's show, and I can tell everyone firsthand, if you get into any kind of serious argument with Joe, his entire fan base will hate your fucking guts. And the very first thing he says is he starts criticizing Joe. The very first thing for inviting the guest. And also Joe is very protective of guests he's had on his show. When I criticized Sam Harris and I think maybe Peterson, I could just feel he got very defensive about it. Murray spent 40 minutes, the first 40 minutes of the show, criticizing Joe Rogan for having bad people on his own show. So the whole audience, which is made up of mostly MAGA voters in Joe Rogan's audience, we know this, now got a taste of who the Israel supporters are. They're elitists who don't even know who their heroes are. They've only heard that their heroes are pro-Nazi and bad and shouldn't be listened to because they're not experts. The whole appeal to expertise and experts, the problem with that for the audience, and this is why Palestine will be freed by Douglas Murray, is that you're insulting the audience you're talking to, you idiot. He's so used to talking to establishment audiences that he forgot, and he's paid zero attention to the dissident right. Clearly, he didn't know Daryl Cooper's name. He barely knew who Dave Smith was. He clearly, most importantly, didn't understand how Joe Rogan's podcast works and who his audience is. This is something I'm an expert in. I'm an expert in Joe Rogan's audience. I have literally read thousands of messages and comments from Joe Rogan fans. Thousands. I know these people. He did exactly what pisses them off, but also it showed that the project of supporting Israel is an establishment project. That's the problem that he stepped in. And thank God he did, because right now the comments on that YouTube video, the Rogan video of that debate, is like 95% hating Douglas Murray's guts.
He's used to, I guess, winning over cocktail parties in New York City filled with journalists with his fancy.
It's better than that. It's better than that. And London and Paris and then Tel Aviv. That's where he is all the time. Right. And how does that play? And also, like, the whole thing about, you haven't been there? You've never flown to Tel Aviv from New York, which costs $1,000 or $2,000. Right. That's an elite guy can do that. I fly here and I go there and I spent the last week in this foreign country and take pictures all over the world. Yeah, that's what rich people do, bro. I mean, I love it in this, but it's true.
Yeah.
Israel is an establishment project. And when the MAGA people find out about this, and I've been saying this for weeks and weeks now, I think Palestine will be free, because then because the Democrats are turned against them. The Democrats are turned against Israel. A solid majority of Democrats are against Israel now. And it's creeping up to a majority for the Republicans and the Trump MAGA base in particular. When they find out what this is really all about, and doesn't forget the dead children. It's just the billions and billions and billions of dollars and then fighting the wars that MAGA hates so much on behalf of Israel. We're finding out more and more how all the Middle East wars of the last 25 years were mostly fought on behalf of the state of Israel. All those young men from Oklahoma and Kansas who signed up to go fight against terrorists after 9/11 and then died or had their legs blown off in Iraq and Afghanistan, they went there. We are now finding out. MAGA is now finding out because Netanyahu told us to do that. So this is a huge historical moment. It's not just my buddy and my ally winning a debate against someone I think is Voldemort. It's that I really see this had a tremendous political shift. And Dave said this. He said he didn't really so much win the argument. It's just that Douglas Murray lost it. And that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right.
No, he started by condescending his host. First of all, he's used to, like, he did well at the Monk debate about a year ago, but that was because it was an Oxford-style debate with very strict parameters of what's being discussed, very strict parameters of what's not being discussed, and it was in front of an audience of elites. It was in a room with an audience in front of elites, so he could talk to the, like, he had a podium and he was put on the attack. To go to somebody else's podcast studio with their friend and immediately start condescending them and insulting them for inviting other people on, to bully the parameters of the argument and argue with people who aren't there, it Yeah, it's gross.
But again, no, it wasn't. No, but it was Joe Rogan's podcast. He did that.
Joe Rogan. Yeah.
He didn't like if he did it on a Pierce Morgan show, it wouldn't matter. If he did it on, if he insulted, like, I don't know, name almost any other show, it wouldn't matter. But Joe Rogan's audience is gigantic and in love with Joe Rogan and loyal to him. I know this very well. That's what pisses them off more than anything else is if you fight back with Joe.
Well, you could fight back with him.
That way, condescending way.
Yeah. If you're condescending, that's the thing. It's like when Sanjay Gupta went on to try to convince him to take the vaccine.
Right.
Like
it's the condescension.
Yeah. Yes. I'm here to put you in your place.
Right.
You stepped out of line.
Which is what the entire Joe Rogan phenomenon is about. The non-elite talking back to the elite. Finally, for the first time in American history. Yeah. On a mass scale, anybody, any dude can talk back to the presidents and the senators and all the corporate. I mean, and so to walk in there anyway, thank you, Douglas. Free Palestine. You did it, baby. Yeah. You did it. You did it, Douglas. You did it for us. Thank you. Oof.
Okay.
All right.
I want to talk about Harvard from that. I want to pivot to Harvard from that.
Wow.
I know I'm going in reverse order, but
I'm just thinking about the Harvard case. It's quite amazing.
Yeah. Can you frame it? Because you probably know a little bit more about it specifically than me. I've got.
So the Trump administration, was this DOE or DOJ? I'm not sure.
The Department of Education.
Must have been DOE. It had to be DOE. Although I feel like one of the other departments was involved in this. But anyway, the Trump administration sent a letter to Harvard and said, if you don't make all these changes in your curriculum, in your teaching and your hiring practices, we will pull, I think it's $2 billion of federal grants to Harvard. Now, Harvard has a $50+ billion endowment, which is the largest endowment in the world of, I think, for any institution possibly, but certainly the biggest of all the universities.
That's money in the bank, right? That's cash they're sitting on, right?
Yeah. That's the endowment is that's the most important thing for any university is how big their endowment is. But anyway, yeah.
Most people, when they're running a business, for example, they often go into debt to fund things, for example. And if you're sitting on $51 billion of debt of cash, where you could build 5 more Harvards if you wanted to.
It's not all cash, but yes, I mean, I've been,
I sell assets, but that's pretty much what it is. It's
they borrow from it. It's called a quasi endowment, whatever. This is boring. Anyway, they just take but anyway, so but whatever. So Harvard stood up strong and said, nope, we're not going to do it. We're not going to change anything. And then Trump said, okay, I'm freezing your grants. I think within 24 hours, as Trump will do. And so that's where we are, as far as I know, at this moment. Of course, he's already done this to Columbia, pulled $400 million, I think, from them. And, but apparently this is going to be the thing to do. He's going to go after and it's all the elite universities, which is interesting as well. It's not, he has zero interest in the sub-elite universities, which is 99% of them. I think 99% of college students do not go to an Ivy League or one of the top, 20 universities anyway. So, and then of course, liberals. Okay. So liberals are like, oh my God, infringement on academic freedom. And this is terrible totalitarianism. And Trump is trying to dictate what universities teach and how, mind control, which is sort of true. But to which I say, guys, and this is the entire liberal left, I believe, and I've been saying this for a long time, guys, you want the federal government of the United States to fund you to the tune of billions of dollars and then say, oh no, you can't tell us what to teach. I'm sorry, but as an American taxpayer, I'm not into that at all. I mean, there's 0 sense there. So it's statism. The left liberal position is actually just statism in a sense. It's like, oh, they should fund us, but not have any control over us. Or that's 2 versions of statism. And then Trump is like, no, we're going to fund you and we're going to control what you have to say, which actually is the logical position. That's the logical statist position. The liberal statist position is incoherent. And I've never heard them ever acknowledge that. Like, how on earth can you ask for and demand federal funding for something and then protest and get upset when they tell you what to do with their money? It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's just sort of this, there's a, you know what that is? It's like a decadent, wealthy, post-war, liberal, bi-coastal, urban
Spoiled
consciousness.
kids.
It's like,
yeah.
right. I mean, because like real liberals, like back in the day who founded the thing, would have been more aware of what they were saying in that, right? But there is something, does remind you of like
somebody who would get
like
to
kids, like kids in your generation who are like, treated like princes and princesses, and they're like pissed off that you didn't give them this or that, present for their birthday or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's really wild. So that's the problem on that side. The problem on the right, I mean, where do I begin? It's just, this is obviously just, it's Israel. I mean, in this case, it's just Israel. That's all there is to it. It's Miriam Adelson and what's his face? Mostly Miriam Adelson, who is dictating this. She gave Trump $100 million for his last campaign. This is Sheldon Adelson's widow. Sheldon Adelson was the Las Vegas real estate magnate who said over and over again, I'm a one-issue voter. Right. He said, I'm a one-issue voter, and the issue is Israel. Just an arch super Zionist. I found out, by the way, that Sheldon Adelson is exactly as Jewish as I am, which I was stunned by. I'm like, dude, you're a quarter Jewish and you're like all up in this business. But he was. And so he funded Trump's last campaign, or the first two campaigns. And then Miriam, he died. And then Miriam funded him to the tune of $100 million this time. So you know that most of this stuff that he's doing around Israel is because of that. Look how loyal he is to people who help him. And if you're loyal to the tune of $100 million, yeah, he's willing to annex the West Bank and annihilate the people of Gaza and throw dissidents in prison and deport people to dungeons if they think wrong about this. Yeah. So anyway, but there's more to say. Go ahead.
Yeah. I do think, I mean, I said this before when we were talking about Colombia, sort of like the USAID thing. It is good to defund your political enemies. It's a good idea to stop giving money to the people who are indoctrinating your kids to hate you. That's a good place to start. I do want.
I mean, don't fund them to begin with. I mean, that's
yes.
So, I mean, I just take sort of a classic libertarian position on this. I always have, which is just like, why the government and education have nothing to do with each other. Mm-hmm. That is a recipe for totalitarianism, propaganda, ideological spread, everything we don't like, left or right, everything we don't like comes from the merger of the state and education. Just that should be obvious, because the state has very particular, usually very lethal interests that they must promote and must propagandize and must train our youth to believe. So why on earth would we want them to come together?
Chris Rufo has been writing about this very well, in that this is using civil rights legislation to go after the universities. Part of it is allegedly how Jews are being treated on campus, allegations of anti-Semitism.
Like royalty. They're being treated like royalty. Is how they're being treated.
Yeah. Some of them might have to walk a block away from campus, or
and half of whom are anti-Zionists. By the way, probably half of Jewish students at universities are anti-Zionist. Not just critics of Israel, but anti-Zionist. Yeah.
You were talking about the polling data. Probably younger students, it's probably 50-50, but you were talking about the polling data on Israel. I saw it broken down by religion. 25% of Jews, according to this poll, oppose Israel or have an unfavorable view of it.
That's all Jews, all American Jews, though.
Yes.
Right. And then, which is amazing. 25% is huge. Yes.
Basically, the only two demographics, broadly speaking, that have a favorable majority view of Israel are Jews and evangelical Protestants. Mm-hmm. So you could chip away at those evangelical Protestants, and I think you could chip away at the Jews if they see how it's working out for them.
They're losing Jews every minute of every day. Like every dead baby, you're losing a Jew.
I've heard a lot of Jews express I
Oh,
viewed you favorably. I have sympathies with you, but you're backing me into a corner of which I cannot defend.
it's
Yeah.
impossible. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
every anti-Zionist I know is Jewish,
Mhm.
and there's hundreds of them at this point. I mean, I can't even tell. It's every day I think, oh, there's that Jewish anti-Zionist too. I mean, and they're prominent too.
Mhm.
No, it's great. Yeah, Israel is self-immolating,
Yeah.
and
But
unfortunately, they're going to just kill a bunch of people on the way down. You know.
so again, if there are any liberals out there who don't like if anybody doesn't like how Donald Trump is going after these universities, trying to restrict what they do. Also, the civil rights legislation goes for admissions, the DEI practices, and how many people they let in. The Supreme Court ruled that they were discriminating against Asians, they're discriminating against whites. But regardless, if you want educational independence again, if you want these institutions to be independent of the government, to be free, stop this tyranny, you got to abolish the Civil Rights Act in 1964. The Trump administration is weaponizing the Civil Rights Act to go after these universities.
Wow.
And so you have to, it's the only way to stop it. I'm sorry.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So
But
we start with the defense of Hitler, and now we're abolishing the Civil Rights Act. Okay, it's going great.
Well, yeah. Explicitly, that's the agenda on the right, is to use the Civil Rights Act the way.
Thank God Trump's in power. We're not going to go to the prison this time.
Now we could use the Civil Rights Act to further our agenda because everybody discriminates.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, I guess, here we go.
Mhm.
I guess I am philosophically opposed to the Civil Rights Act. I think I'm pretty sympathetic to, again, I've using this word for the second time here, the libertarian arguments against it. I think they're pretty persuasive.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure strategically that's the way to go, because to me, and I've said this again publicly so many times, and I have been a direct victim of this at least twice that I know of. The greatest violators by far of the Civil Rights Act of 1965 in American life are university administrators and professors. They violate the Civil Rights Act every single day on every single campus, in admissions, in hiring, in tenure promotion, in the ways in which the students are treated, in all sorts of ways, all the time. I mean, I've been told to my face that I was not hired for particular jobs because I was white. I mean, twice that's happened to me. So, it's, and to colleagues and to friends of mine too, when it was obvious that we were more qualified than the people who were hired. I mean, not even close, it was just, we would have won and also I heard, and this is true, every university and college with any kind of endowment right now, this is the great secret, that once this gets exposed, boy, has a major sub endowment simply to fund defense in court cases against violations of the Civil Rights Act.
Wow.
They're getting sued all. Yeah. Oh yeah. Ooh. When I was at Occidental College, I heard about numerous cases of people suing for being discriminated against, all white men. And in fact, I had a talk with a lawyer in LA at the time who, that's what he did. He specialized in that. He took cases, and what happens is they just pay out. Mm-hmm. So that it doesn't become public, so they have continued to be secret, because professors don't have any money, right? So if you offer a professor like $1 million, even $500,000 or whatever, they'll usually take it and walk away and be happy. And that's what they do, because it's rampant. It's like, there's not even I can't even think of a second on this one. It is the most racist institution in American life. I mean, there's not even, what else can compare? They discriminate based on race and gender and sex every single day in almost every major personnel decision they make, all the time, except openly. Except in a few STEM departments where there are no black people and no women, like engineering. They don't have to worry about this. But in most departments, even in math, even in biology, even in, I know those are the case. And in certainly all the humanities, all the social sciences, every single personnel decision is inflected or determined by race or gender or sex. I mean, it is off the chain. So this is why the federal government, the state in general, should have nothing to do with education. And so I'm glad, again, this is like Trump coming to the right conclusion for the wrong reason, right? Doing what I ultimately would want anyway, which is to pull funding from Harvard, right? Pull all the funding from Harvard, pull all the funding from all the universities right now, all of it. Never fund them a nickel again. Let them, like every other business, which is all they really are. Why is it that we allow them this state protected monopoly? And we haven't even talked about the accreditation system. If Linda McMahon and Donald Trump want to really get serious about going after the elite universities, get rid of the accreditation system, which flows from the Department of Education. To get accredited, you essentially have to be accredited by an accreditation agency that is itself accredited by the Department of Education. So if McMahon does what she's promised, and so far I don't believe that, because Trump, the administration, hasn't delivered almost anything they promised. But if she does, in abolishing the Department of Education, inshallah, I guess that will be the end of the accreditation system. And so now these universities and colleges will, my God, have to be like every other organization and business in this country, which is they're going to have to fend for themselves and compete in the marketplace of ideas and commerce. Oh gosh, why don't we do that? That seems like a great idea. So go there, guys. Forget, I mean, yeah, pull the funding, of course. That's a given. But not for these reasons, not because Netanyahu told you to, not because Miriam Adelson told you to. Do it because there should be no connection whatsoever between the federal government and education. So there you go.
Yeah, shout out to Secretary of Education Linda McMahon.
She's, I mean, yeah. Again, wrong reasons, right results, I guess. But yeah, she's getting there for sure.
She's flirting also. She's flirting with rescinding Harvard's tax-exempt status and using the IRS to go after the universities potentially.
Imagine like 20 years ago. I mean, if someone said to me that the host of The Apprentice and the wife of WWEF, which is it?
E. It was F in the 90s. It turned to E.
Oh, good. I'm not so stupid. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And the wife of the WWEF owner would be determining education policy and abolishing the Department of Education in 2025. I mean, there's no chance anyone would take you seriously. And that the largest media outlet and the most consequential political person in media in 2025 would be the host of The Fear Factor. Completely wild. I mean, what has happened in the last 20 years? Just unimaginable in 2005. Yeah, if you had said that, I mean, well, then God,
it's the monster that
10 years ago.
This is all. It's interesting you said that, because this is all rooted in network television entertainment, right? All these people had their roots in television entertainment.
Wow.
And the experts that were pushed to us on the same news stations that these networks owned, they dropped the ball. They weren't compelling. They weren't right on anything. They sold us wars that were against our interests. And so people with actual communication skills just started reading for a change. And created a real alternative. And nobody talented works for the establishment anymore when it comes to at least communicating to regular people. It seems like the establishment lost interest in that and continues to condescend.
The thing that we are now, though, discovering about that phenomenon of the internet generation of dissident intellectuals, I guess I would call it, dissident autodidact intellectuals who have, as I said, have become so powerful. They won the election. They kicked. That's what kicked the Democrats out. There's no question about that. The problem that world is now discovering, and it's just sort of delicious because I predicted this, and it should have been obvious if you know anything about histories of revolutions, right? Revolutionaries are super cool and badass, and everybody's on their side when they're revolutionaries. But the second they take power, what do? In every single case, they exert power on the people. They become authoritarian. in all sorts of ways. Every single revolution, from the American to the French, yes, the American Revolution, yes, women were rounded up and thrown into gulags, essentially, women's reformatories at the time. Children were taken up off the streets and put into orphanages, reformatories. Prisons were huge, modern prisons were built. Anyway, but yeah, the French Revolution famously, the Russian Revolution very famously, all the revolutions you can name in the modern era, immediately after the revolutionaries took power, they began taking authoritarian measures against the people, because you kind of have to when you take state power. Again, the state must do this. So seeking state power is never a great idea if you're interested in freedom, if you're interested in liberty, if you're interested in the things that the Trump movement, the MAGA movement has been saying they're for. But the second they taste some power, like, due process.
All right. We'll get to that.
Who cares, man? Send him to the gulag. He might or might not be a member of a gang, but we think he is. We think he is. We've heard that he is.
Well,
but he should go to the slave labor camp for the rest of his life in another country. And we're just going to throw people out of the country who we don't like what they're saying, even if they are on the road to citizenship, like our parents were or our grandparents were.
Okay. Real quick, before we get to that, Leandro Johan, the way Trump picked up the immigration issue as the Republicans ignored it, some future Republican will run away with the Israel issue and win. Do you think that there's popular sentiment for the Republican Party to abandon Zionism, and some reformer of the Republican Party will pick that up?
Yeah. I mean, that's been the trend for many, many months now. You see it all over the place. You see one MAGA supporter after another coming out against Trump. So I actually got written up somewhere. I forget which outlet just mentioned me about this. But I tweeted a few days ago, I said, Israel will be the rock on which MAGA breaks apart. And it went viral. But the most important thing was that Jack Maxey liked it. Might have retweeted it too. So did George Galloway. George Galloway actually retweeted it. So I was thinking, Jack Maxey, for people that don't know, Jack Maxey was the original co-host of Steve Bannon's War Room. You can't get more MAGA than that. So I went to, and I was watching War Room at the time when he was, so I know the guy. I mean, I know who he is. I didn't know him personally, but, and I think 2 or 3 other people who had been on the War Room, and I think a couple have been on my show, maybe Joe Allen, I'm not sure, also liked it. A bunch of MAGA people. There were a lot of American flags in the people who liked or retweeted it. And George Galloway, who's the leftist, I guess, anti-imperialist politician in Britain. So it's an interest. There's your coalition right there. But the fact that, so then I tweeted after that, I said several prominent members of MAGA have liked this tweet. So it's already happening. Look at Jack Maxey's, go to Jack Maxey's Twitter right now, everybody. You'll see multiple anti-Israel posts on there. That's the former co-host of Steve Bannon's War Room. So well, it is spreading. And I think that's the death knell for Israel. I really do. Well, sorry. Yeah. Take back death. I think it's the end of the Zionist project.
You said DEFCON. It's the DEFCON what of?
I just said kill all the Jews in the world right now. Put them in ovens tomorrow, because that's what I'm for. No, I really do. I think Israel is the Zionist project is over because of that. I think that's truly, if I were a Zionist right now, that is what I'd be most worried about, because you lost the Democrats, which is half the country, half the political country. Well, and now it's the MAGA base is eroding from you every minute of every day.
You're losing more and more Democrats every day, because the football got passed from Genocide Joe to Trump. And so now Zionism looks Republican and Trumpy and bad and passe. The thing is, this is happening every day on X, and it's been happening for years. Some America Firster, your patriotic uncle, somebody who loves America and just thinks Israel is our ally, will see Tucker Carlson interview a survivor of the USS Liberty, or see a video talking about how Israel is the only country to have attacked the United States and not been retaliated against, and the gears start turning. So,
not to mention the espionage, the multiple Israeli spies
yes,
who've been convicted, like Jonathan Pollard, who was in American prison, I think, an Israeli spy, an American guy, but was working for Israel, stealing secrets from the United States, who now, after he got out of prison, moved to Israel and is now an ultra right-wing settler podcaster.
Yeah,
who calls openly for genocide.
Aaron McIntyre recently, this last week, when he was talking about tariffs, said, "Hey, was it Iran that had the pager, or Hezbollah, right? Members of Hezbollah and Hamas.
Hezbollah,
yeah, Hezbollah. But the pager explosion thing.
Yeah.
The problem with that was their technology was made in Israel and it had Israel surveillance technology on it. So what tariffs do is they protect technology coming into the United States, and you don't have any sneaky Israeli spyware that could blow up your devices if your device is made in the United States. So the gears are turning. The gears are turning.
I have several friends who have received messages over the last year or two threatening pagers on them. That they shouldn't get a pager, or they should get a pager, or the pager's being sent to them or something. Yeah. There's a, by the way, there is a pretty huge, pretty horrific, I guess you'd call it harassment and threat campaign being conducted against a lot. I haven't had it yet, thank God, but except for harassment on Twitter. But I mean, several friends have had like their phone numbers hacked somehow, and they get phone calls from these ultra Zionist groups threatening to kill them. But using the pager joke is what's common. Yeah.
Well, man,
they're fun people.
To get us into more trouble, that book "Crying Wolf" by Laird Wilcox about hate crime hoaxes. Groups like the ADL have a history of using computerized phones to harass and overload the phones of other groups. In the case of this book, they were talking about neo-Nazi groups and whatever, but there is a long history of targeted harassment from a lot of these organizations.
Yeah. So let me finish this logical chain, which is, so they've lost the Democrats.
Yes.
3/4 of Democrats, and almost all young Democrats, are anti-Israel. They're losing the Republican Party because of MAGA, because MAGA is every day waking up to what Israel is all about, what supporting Israel really means, and they're losing support from them too. So once it's a clear majority, which is, well, I guess it's there, but once the governing party too, like Republicans, the rank and file are anti-Israel, what's Trump going to do? Yes, Mary Madelson has $100 million for you, but your base has your votes. So once that turns truly, then we're going to get more and more Congress people who will not take money from AIPAC, which is already happening. There are now people running for Congress who have a chance to win in the next election who are openly refusing to take money from AIPAC. The movement just keeps growing. But Congress, when we get more and more Congress people who are like Thomas Massey, who refuse to take money from AIPAC, they'll stop voting to support Israel. And then eventually, within, I don't know, 4 to 8 to 10, something like that years, like 2 or 3 elections from now, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
We're gonna have enough voters. I mean, come on, if they keep killing children like this, there's no chance they won't have a majority who are basically anti-Zionist. Well, I really don't. And so then when that happens, the president will eventually have to kowtow to that base and pull the funding, pull the support, pull the intelligence cooperation, pull the military umbrella from Israel, which are the most important things. It's not the billions of dollars so much. It's that we provide them with a military defensive shield 24/7. Once we pull that, guess how many people are going to move out of Tel Aviv and move back to where they come from, which is Europe and Brooklyn.
If MAGA is listening, if the streets are listening, if MAGA is listening, now's the time to primary your neocon congressman. Now's the time to do it. If it changes by 2022, even.
And it's pro-Semitic. Right, if you're worried, and if you're worried about being anti-Semitic, don't. It's pro-Semitic. And if you want to know more about that, I can give you a list of hundreds of Jews, from Orthodox rabbis all the way down to Reform boys and secular Jews who are as anti-Zionist as anybody.
Tucker Carlson was saying, you might as well vote for a Democrat if you're going up against Lindsey Graham. Like, it's better for that chair to be filled by a Democrat. It just is. Like, it's better to get some of these people out. So now's your chance. 2028. Sorry, it will be or 2026. 2026 will be your chance.
If anybody's, just last thing, then we'll go to the Mexican portion of this, otherwise known as the El Salvadoran. If anybody's concerned, I just keep repeating this because it's important. If anybody is concerned about being anti-Semitic in their anti-Zionism, please go watch Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro on my show on Unregistered, or Kitty Halper's show. He's done many interviews. Just go watch an hour of him and you will feel just fine about being an anti-Zionist. So let's move on to the Mexican portion of the show, which is about El Salvador. There's not a lot of difference according to most Americans.
What was it? Was it Fox News map that had like every South American country labeled as Mexico or something? They started referring to like,
what's the difference?
Brazil as Mexico.
Yeah.
But,
I believe, I don't know, I think it might be a majority of restaurant workers in the United States might now be Salvadoran. I mean, it's getting close. They took over the restaurant business as cooks a while ago. I mean, Tony Bourdain mentioned that. In fact, I think he said if you banned immigration from El Salvador, every French restaurant in the United States would shut down. Go to a French restaurant, you'll find a Salvadoran and probably a Mexican cook back there. Oh yeah, making your French food. Immigration, guys, is an overall net good, but not even close. I mean, it is overwhelmingly good. I am grossed out by this whole phenomenon. I have benefited massively from immigrants my entire life. I do every single day. I am for illegal immigration. I don't want to deport anybody except actual criminals, which is just like my feelings about American citizens. I'd like to deport them to prisons. I want to deport criminals away from society. Other than that, I want to keep them all.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I want the day laborers. We want to get rid of the day laborers at Home Depot. Really? You don't want to fix your deck for cheap? Okay, cool. You don't want to get your landscaping done for cheap? Cool. You don't want people to take care of your children for cheap? Cool. You're idiots. You don't, what is it? You only like American food? You don't like that weird, exotic, spicy food from abroad? Yeah, fuck you. I mean, most of us do. You never want to eat a burrito again? Really? Okay. You never want to eat French food again. You never want to go to a restaurant again, apparently. You want to get those people out of this country? That's what's going to happen. This is absurd. If they're actual criminals, violent criminals, of course, fuck them. Get them out of here. Put them in, whatever you want to do with them. I don't care. But that goes for Americans too. And guess what? Illegal immigrants are less likely to commit crime. We know this. Why? Logic. Because they know that they're deported if they do anything wrong. So they tend to actually play it much more safe than American citizens. We know this. Study after study after study. Open borders all day, every day, forever. It is ridiculous to think any otherwise. We are Americans. Every one of us is an immigrant. Do I need to go over that again? Every good thing that's happened in this country, other than what the blacks have provided, has been provided by immigrants. The Puritans, the original white settlers, the Mayflower generation, what did they give us? They gave us sexual repression. Thanks. No, the immigrants are the people who built what is the most beautiful country demographically and culturally in human history, which is what I believe America is. Take away the Jews from American history. Oh, there goes Hollywood. There goes half of the music industry. There goes half of the intellectual output in American history. How about the Irish? Did the Irish contribute anything worthwhile that's fun? Yeah, they invented urban culture, social dancing, all kinds of shit. Goes down the line. Italians. Yeah, what about them? If we had gotten rid of them, we'd be so much better off as a culture. Sure, Italians haven't contributed anything, have they, to our culture? Oh no, we'd be eating porridge, guys. We'd be eating porridge and we'd be so parochial and ignorant about the world. we would be like a dumb and poor Switzerland, where everybody looks alike, everybody thinks alike, everybody's from the same place, everybody's lived there. Oh, this is what MAGA and the whole traditionalist idiots get off on. Everybody in Switzerland has lived there for generations. Go to talk to a Swiss person. They all have family that go back generations and generations and centuries, right? It's cool. I love Switzerland. It's beautiful. People are nice. It's boring as shit. It's boring as shit. It's the opposite of America in terms of cultural richness. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. So tasty food and a cheap slave labor force.
I'm already mad.
Is better than national sovereignty. Is better than.
Wait, you really care about national sovereignty? Who cares? What?
Is...
Wait, really? Can we all pause for a second? Everybody's sitting at home listening to this. Ask yourself right at this moment: do you really care about national sovereignty? Do you?
Hey, I like slavery too, Thad. I like slavery too. Okay, I think
you really. Everybody, you guys are worried about national sovereignty. What is that? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, again. I think the number one concern in 2025 when it comes to politics is defeating the enemy of globalism and absorbing all of the world's people into the United States through illegal immigration is serving the globalist interest and subverting national sovereignty. It's I didn't really care about this issue. I remember in 2010, I was a big open borders guy in like 2010, and Barack Obama like had like a thing on YouTube where he's like, "Hey, submit your question to me and I'll answer it." And so I said, "Hey, will you legalize weed?" That got a ton of upvotes. And I said, "Hey, can you open the borders?" So many downvotes, and that got my mind turning. I'm like, "Wait a minute, the same audience that wants to legalize weed is against open borders. Why?" And yeah, it turns out people care. People really, really care. This is the thing that Trump got into office on. And yeah. But I mean,
people who want to legalize weed want to close the borders.
Well, I'm saying that there was popular support. There was at this time
among the weed smokers.
I think at that time, I mean,
great example. No, fantastic example.
Marijuana came from Mexico. We all know this. Yes.
Thank you, motherfucker. Why don't you mention that part?
I know. I'm not pro weed anymore.
Mexicans brought marijuana to the United States. Mexicans brought marijuana to the United States. Blacks became the first distributors in the United States, which is why we should give them great honors. But Mexicans were the first people to bring it in and start selling it in the United States. This is well known. This is simply the first reason to be for open borders. The first of many, not just burritos. Well, they brought us weed. For that alone, there should be no border patrol. And you want to talk about the history of the border patrol? Who enforced the border first in the 1960s? Michael Weimer, tell me who? Who?
Yeah, who? I know Dems. I know pro-labor Dems, Lyndon Baines Johnson.
And on the ground, who had the first militia force on the border to enforce the border patrol?
Are you talking about Cesar Chavez?
Cesar Chavez.
Yeah, but
Cesar Chavez is your boy here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's historically a labor, Democrat, liberal project.
But it's a working class project. It
because of the labor market, because they wanted to restrict the labor market.
So this is the thing. If American citizens want better wages for themselves, they want to stop being undercut by illegal immigrant labor who are being paid under the table and accepting lower wages. Fair. Okay. That's an interest. Housing costs are an issue. The crime thing is an issue. And I think Trump has been good about making the first people he deports very obvious criminals. This Kilmar Garcia guy. Trump just released all the documents about his gang affiliations. His wife had a restraining order against him. And yeah, he's a citizen of El Salvador being returned to his country of origin. And I want to talk about the El Salvador thing in that you can talk about human rights all you want, but Nayib Bukele is the most well-liked, popular leader in the world amongst his own people. He has the highest approval rating in the world.
Yes.
He has a 90% approval rating.
Yes.
He has made El Salvador safe again for El Salvadorians. Many of those chefs that you were talking about migrated from El Salvador because of the gang violence. And a lot of them, there's been plenty of stories saying, hey, I can return to my homeland finally because it's safe to walk the streets again. I can go back to the little house I grew up in as a child. There's been plenty of documentaries where you see immigrants from the United States coming back to El Salvador and crying, seeing how clean the streets are and how they can go back to their childhood home. So I'm all for making South America safe again. So South Americans can live in their homeland. That's what I'm for.
So do you know that East Berlin was super safe too? There was
East Berlin.
It was just like no crime, no gangs at all. Weren't East Berlin. It was, you could walk down any street at 4 a.m. as a woman and nothing would happen to you in East Berlin. Because they just locked up every criminal. Or they locked up everybody they suspected of being a criminal, which is actually what they did. And so that meant that criminals were in prison, which is fine, in East Berlin, but so were a lot of people like you and me who were just like dissidents or said things weird or things that the authorities didn't like so much, or were just weird, or they were gay, or they were promiscuous women, or they were weird. Honestly, in East Germany and across the Warsaw Pact, the Soviet bloc, Eastern Europe, before and during the Cold War, that's what went down. And so those cities, Bucharest, Moscow, I was in Moscow, 1987, in the Soviet Union. There's no crime at all. That was not even, you didn't even think about crime because they locked them all up, put them in the gulag, and often they weren't criminals. The people who got, sometimes they were, and sometimes, as we all know, very famously, most of the people or a lot of the people in the gulags weren't criminals at all. They were just different, weird, dissident, antagonistic to the government in some way or another. Or just, as I said, just had a personality quirk and didn't want to work in a factory for the government. So they got locked up, dude. And so it was super safe in East Berlin. And that's what El Salvador is now. So yeah, I mean, it's nice. I loved walking down the streets of Moscow at 3 a.m, drinking vodka, not worrying about getting jacked. I did. But then I was like, but I want to go back to America now.
Well, you have to compare El Salvador now to where El Salvador was 10, 15 years ago, 5 years ago even.
I get it.
And so the conditions that El Salvador had, this is the line that Bukele had, is that we didn't imprison thousands, we liberated millions, because millions of people lived in terror. It being the murder capital of the world, they didn't feel safe to go outside. So would you rather have the entire population living in fear, afraid to go outside, making plans to flee, or would you have a minority imprisoned brutally under the worst conditions and the crime problem go away and schools and streets are safe again? I think libertarians often see the government as their only possible oppressor, and they don't see the world as a jungle that is a battle of multiple people warring to be in charge. And if the gangs have won, then that's oppression for everybody, you know? So,
which is why, here's a segue, which is why Carmelo Anthony should be free. Because he represents the right to self-defense in the world that is a jungle. But let me just, no, my brother, no.
Okay.
Hugely important argument you're making. And you're totally right that this is just a very difficult issue. And I meant that like the thing about the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc and East Berlin, and yeah, I mean, but there is a choice there. Of course, this is a classic age-old choice in politics between security and freedom.
Yeah.
Right. This is I'm not the first person to say this. The
Yeah.
tension between the two. And what I'm saying here right now is, for me, there is no right or wrong there. It's about your values. Some people value security. I've said this before. Some people value freedom. And I don't think one is wrong or right. It depends on who you are and what you want. Let me just say this, though. So I also lived in New York City through the 90s. I lived in New York City for the entire decade of the 90s and then after. But so that meant when I got there in 1991, it was terrifying to go on the subway at night. I mean, it was a true, it was taking a risk to some degree. It was like a real risk. You had to like weigh in your mind if you're going to take the subway at night in New York City when I got there. Giuliani, I think, became mayor in 92 or 3. And he locked up everybody. I mean, every criminal or people he thought were criminals. And maybe more importantly, nationally, he kind of set the stage for the Clinton crime bill, which was in 94, Clinton-Biden crime bill. And all the kind of discourse around putting drug dealers in prison forever or for decades, right? These ridiculous, exaggerated sentences for people, which resulted in a lot of stuff, including my buddy currently being in prison for selling MDMA, which he'll be there for the next 2.5 years. Horrific shit that's been done to people that we all know about for the last 30 years or so was also done. So, but New York City, when I left, I mean, well, not even when I left, like from basically the time Giuliani took over until I left and till this day, was the safest city in New York, in America. So, I mean, it was awesome to take the subway, and I never thought about crime once after Giuliani took over. But all these terrible consequences, and Times Square is now like Disneyland. It used to be full of porn shops and stuff, but mostly the ridiculous infringements on personal freedom that came with that project of making New York a safe city.
Stop and frisk.
I mean, so like, I loved it. It was fantastic.
That's what I'm saying.
But it also had all these horrific consequences. So what do you want to do? But you guys choose.
Would you rather live in New York City in 1995, or would you rather live in 1989, 1991? Right?
It's interesting. I mean, yeah. I mean, it was also a little bit more boring. Like New York was also, and a lot of people in New York said that at the time. I mean, I guess no. I mean, of course, personal security also has to trump everything else, but I do miss, in many ways, the pre-93 New York City. It was kind of amazing. When I watched movies about New York in the 80s, and I lived there too in the 80s for a bit, it was crazy and wild and scary. And as I said, taking the subway at night was like truly a dangerous experience. And I had to commute on the subway at night at midnight for a while, so I know this. But yeah, but it was also fascinating and incredible. In some ways, it was like New York at its best and its richest and its deepest and most vibrant and incredible. So I don't know, man. It's just, again, it's like what you want.
Well,
what you want in life. It's about your values.
You know, the blackout.
Yeah. Which one? Yeah, the big one in the 70s?
Yeah, the big one in the 70s.
77, I think. Yeah.
Electricity goes away for like what, one night, and that's what I learned about it, and I'd read about it before, and I thought this went on for days. But no, it was just one night. There was a blackout for one night, and all the stores got looted. Everything, complete devastation, just complete generational impacting devastation from one night of no electricity.
We had a blackout in the 2000s. I forget. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. I think it was, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 2003, somewhere in there. Yeah, and there was no such thing happened. It was in this, I think it was across the city, and there was no crime wave. Not really, not significant one. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I know, but like Times Square in the 80s was phenomenal. A little crime, it's like spice in your food. That's what crime is.
Yeah.
It just makes life a little tastier and a little dangerous.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, look at all the great cultural performers and artifacts of the 20th century in America. Like they generally spent time in some dangerous cities, or they came right out of them. I mean, that's what a lot of the great artists were. Anyway, go ahead. What are we going to do?
Yeah. Okay, I think we covered that. We're over time. You want to talk about the man? I wish we could get more into the specifics of the cases, but Unregistered Academy. You got some plans in the works for the spring, and we're cleaning up the site.
Yeah, I just want to tell people that we are in spring break right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start in, I think, 2 weeks, the spring term. But we're going to announce all that with a new slate of courses for the spring term very shortly. So just stay tuned. What we're doing right now during our spring break is, as Michael mentioned, we are overhauling the website, making it much more mobile friendly and other things, and much cleaner and more customer friendly. So yeah, just go sign up for, well, just be tuned in, and we will keep you updated. But just know that we're in spring break now, and probably within a week we'll be announcing a whole slate of courses for the spring term. So
yeah,
look out for that. Oh, and by the way, if you have any suggestions or requests for courses, let us know at unregisteredmedia@gmail.com. unregisteredmedia@gmail.com. If you have any requests for particular courses, let us know. We are working on that right now, on the curriculum, what we're going to be teaching. But we are now open for suggestions. So hit us up. That's all. What else?
Cool. Well, I would say, I guess your winter term, if you want to call it that, went very well. Those courses are now streaming, correct?
Yes, all of them are. Yeah, if you want to, right. All the courses are now streaming from the winter term. And so if you want to check those out, become a member.
Yeah. It was good Thaddeus Russell 101 from great books with the Bible to postmodernism.
True. People want a good broad swath.
Yeah.
Of what we do. All right. We didn't talk about the deportation. Well, I guess we did, but
Barrow. Yeah. That's what I wanted to get at. And the thing about the deportations is we aren't getting the millions of deportations that we were promised yet. These high-profile cases are just blowing up, and people are making a big deal out of them. I wanted to talk about it in relation to the Democratic senators, Van Hollen and then Booker and his crew, going down to El Salvador, leaving no stone unturned for an illegal immigrant, MS-13, domestic violence abuser. Yet
I hate it when Democrats agree with me. This is the first time in 20 years, 25 years that Democrats have agreed with me on anything.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
But
it's the thing I'm most angry at Trump about.
Yeah.
He's forced me back into the Democratic Party.
We've talked about this on the show, but the broader thing about immigration, at least for me, is narrowing the scope of government to only cover its citizens, not the entire world, not to absorb tens of millions of people from the world. And, the Democrats have been on record about wanting to demographically change the country. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's their explicit agenda. Every Democrat will tell you it's a good thing.
Correct.
Yes.
Let's be really clear here.
Yes.
The Great Replacement theory is 100% correct.
It's
Matt, wasn't it Matt Orfalea? Who's the video? He's was it him? Has an amazing montage, that video montage of like dozens of major Democrats saying totally this, that we're for immigration, open immigration, so that we can change the demographic base of America and win elections in the future.
Never lose an election again.
Major Democrats on MSNBC giving speeches like over and over, like many of them saying exactly that. It's wild.
Yeah.
No, of course it is.
Yeah. And
why else would they care? They don't care about people. They care about winning. And if they think that brown people are going to vote for, which is less and less true, by the way. So the Great Replacement theory is being revised as we speak.
Yeah.
I think they're going to stop believing in this pretty soon.
Republicans need to learn Spanish. Every Republican go out there and learn Spanish.
Latinos voted for Trump, I think, or close to that.
I mean, go to Florida, you'll see Venezuelans, El Salvadorans wearing leather jackets with the American flag on it, blasting Leonard Skinner and speaking Spanish.
That's over now, I guess. But like for about 20 years there, Democrats looked at that. Was it Rui Teixeira? He's a big Democrat strategist guy in DC, RUY Teixeira, Brazilian name, but he's just a white dude. Anyway, he I think wrote a whole book about this. He's the one who invented the strategy, he doesn't call it this, but it's a great replacement strategy.
Yeah.
And he says this openly. And then every Democrat since then has been like, oh yeah, we should have more immigrants from the South. I mean, the global South, because they'll vote for us and we'll win.
Yeah.
They've said this over and over. I mean, it's such an obvious thing to like scoff at the great replacement theory as like some conspiracy theory from the Nazis. Is just ridiculous. Democrats have said this. Everybody, look it up. There's a montage. You can find it on Twitter. Video montage of Democrats talking about the great replacement theory.
And yeah, the Biden administration letting in 10 to 15, some people say 20 million undocumented immigrants, giving about 4 million social security numbers.
Yeah.
Those people.
And 99% of those people are fantastic and should be allowed to stay forever. If you want to live well and eat other than porridge, you should let them stay. And dead serious.
Yeah.
Get rid of the criminals right now. I hate MS-13, but that's, I mean, I've known personally many, many illegal immigrants. They're all awesome people who have done nothing but contribute to all of our lives. Like, seriously, it's just, that's what they do. They come here and work like dogs to do shit that Americans won't do that improves all of our lives. All of our lives. I mean, it's insane that you want to get rid of those people. If you commit a crime, sure, fuck them. But that's a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage, and it's far smaller percentage than Americans who commit violent crime. So, all right, man.
All right.
Open borders, unless you're racist.
It's so funny to see the Democratic Party become the party of big business on this one too. It's interesting. It's like all the free traders, big business free traders are out of the Republican Party and they're into the Democratic Party.
Man, that's like super right. That's really weird and nuanced and interesting and confusing. Right.
Republicans don't want to listen to Milton Friedman anymore.
As I said, the Democrats is LBJ and Cesar Chavez in the 60s, and George Meany was the head of the AFL-CIO at the time. They literally invented the border patrol. There was no patrol of the border before then. 1965, I think it was. Yeah, 65 Immigration Act. It was a complete, not just Democrat, but liberal, like very liberal Democrat policy was closing the border. And and then it became a Republican establishment issue. Or no, my bad. No, the Bush administration was actually more open borders because they were the
Reagan, Bush.
Right. Reagan and Bush, right.
Yeah.
They were right. They wanted, as you were saying, they wanted more open borders.
Yeah.
Because they represented corporations who wanted the cheap labor.
Yeah.
And now there's been another flip because the nationalist populists came along and said, we don't like immigration. And so the Democrats had to play opposition to that. It's very tricky. And I don't know. You're right. Like the fact that labor is dead, almost dead as an institution or dying. I mean, they're still powerful in the Democratic Party, but the SEIU, the Service Employees Union, which is the largest union and the most politically powerful union, which has been like the backbone of the Democratic Party for decades, they're pro-immigration. I guess because their membership is mostly like Black women, like sort of the urban working class, I guess. I don't know.
Well, the auto workers and the Teamsters, have been pivoting hard towards Trump in recent years.
You got that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a tricky one, but all you got to know is, do you like burritos or do you like just McDonald's?
I would like to not displace. The thing is, massive immigration is also massive displacement from South America. So
you ever had Ethiopian food?
I never. Oh my goodness, delicious food.
Thai food.
Let Democrats win every election forever and destroy the whole world because we get tasty food.
How about Cuban food? How about that? You like that? How about Cuban music, bro? How about Cubans, Cuban people who play music coming to your country? Do you want that to happen anymore?
I think that could be accomplished without tens of millions of people.
Oh, really? You don't want them to live here, though. You don't want the great Cuban Afro percussionists to come and live here with you and be near you and teach you and train you and play with you. You don't want that, huh? That would be horrible. That would be horrible. Because you would, know what, Michael? You would lose national sovereignty if you did that.
I would be. I know.
Last night, it was like 3 I woke up, I was sweating. I was like, fuck, we're losing our national sovereignty.
I think there's a way to get the talented people over here without sending in tens of millions of cheap labor to flood the housing market,
which is that
and
you have to
displace
practice more.
the census and the,
So you become better, so that
Yeah.
you attract them to play with you.
it's a yeah.
Okay.
Also, you could just go there. You could just go to
Oh.
their homeland. You could
But we're
just
not
visit
allowed
them.
to, because the United States won't allow you to fly to Cuba because of Donald Trump.
That's not the case necessarily.
Yes,
You could,
isn't it?
I mean,
Yeah, there's a ban.
you could
not.
not necessarily. I mean, you could.
No, that's the law. You're not allowed to fly from here to there because of Trump. Trump did that.
Did the terrorist funding thing go that far? Because people are going.
No,
there.
the embargo.
People are going.
Obama lifted the embargo, and then Trump placed the embargo back on Cuba.
I know, but you can still go there. It's still possible to go there.
Yeah, by flying through Canada or Mexico, but you can't fly there from here.
Okay, fair. But so what? Like, it's still
or rowing on a boat, like the refugees do.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I think we're done.
Yeah. The
people have had enough of the racism.
We could just steal their food. You know that we could steal. We could. It's very
yeah. We could just we've been doing that that's called cultural appropriation, though. So we don't like.
Yeah.
We like our Cubans to make our sandwiches for us. Okay, guys. Thank you all. Great audience. Great chat. My goodness, a lot of energy.
We're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep it going at Patreon.
Michael,
right?
You saw that you have a huge fan base now on Twitter. Like someone said today, there's no. What did he say? Like, what did he say? There's like the worst thing to do is miss Wime time. Wime time is now like an internet meme.
Mm-hmm.
It's like hashtag Wime time.
Yeah, I should have, man.
Oh, yes, Patreon.
Yeah.
So listen, guys, honestly, Michael needs new drumsticks. So can you go to patreon.com/unregistered and hook us up? That's all. Just help us out. Become a member. Bonus is you can come to the after show after this show and either watch us be crazy, which last week got a little bit out of control. But we hang out with patrons who are patrons of the show every Wednesday night. It is a blast. It's the highlight of my week, truly. So that's an added benefit, but you should just support the show anyway. So go to patreon.com/unregistered. Become a monthly member. It's really simple and cheap, like really cheap. And we could use the support. So that's all. I hope to see you all. I will see you. I will see many of you as we go to the after show right now. And hopefully we'll see some new people there tonight as well. I have a feeling we will. Michael, love you, man.
Peace. Yeah, same. Here we go.
Peace. Oh, same. Yeah. That's all I get, huh?
Same. Yeah, I know. I'm too homophobic. I really am.
I know.
I know.
No homo, but I love you.
Yeah.
I don't want to fuck you, but I do love you. Okay. Bye.
I just want
help
the dad shoulder, the dad shoulder punch where